Like age 5, I was like, I want to be the fastest man on earth. That would be really cool. I'm going to go to the Olympics. But, you don't really understand that. You just want to be the fastest kid at recess.
Welcome to The Lisa Show, where we take a good look at life. It's March in Stillwater, Oklahoma. 251 of the nation's best male runners line up on a wide dirt path to compete in the NCAA National Cross Country Championships. It's a 6.2-mile course of dirt and heartbreaking hills. The wind is blowing so hard that the numbers pinned to the runners' backs rattle in the breeze. Conner Mantz stretches and bounces to keep his legs warm. He's wearing a white singlet, royal blue shorts beneath a small mustache. Last year, he came in third in this race. He has no reason to think he could repeat that performance. He's had 2 bone injuries in the last 18 months, and they've taken their toll. Injuries or no injuries, Mantz has come to run. Silence. And then the gun goes off. The runners form a wall 7 bodies across, 4 bodies deep. Then the pack starts to thin into a serpentine train. They weave through the bare trees and yellow grass of the Oklahoma plain. Wesley Kiptoo, a Kenyan runner from Iowa State, takes an early lead and pulls away from the pack. Mantz follows him. 6 minutes into the race, Kiptoo starts to pull ahead of Mantz. First, it's only a few strides. Then, it's a dozen strides. Now, another runner passes Mantz to join Kiptoo up front. At this point, the course is a series of roller coaster hills flanked by rugged pines. 2 miles into the race, Mantz finds himself in no man's land. He has a pack of runners behind him, but there is still a stretch of dirt road between him and the 2 leaders. He's running alone. Mantz's brow is furrowed. You can tell he's worried. Halfway into the race, the pack behind Mantz has caught up to him, including a runner from South Africa named Adrian Wildschut. He turns to Mantz and says, "Let's work together. Let's catch them." 4 miles into the race, Mantz has turned his worry into determination. He and Wildschut push forward to catch up with Kiptoo. With 1 kilometer left, Mantz gains a foot, and then a stride, and then a stretch of road on Kiptoo. For the first time in 20 minutes, you see something cross Mantz's face. It's hope. He crests the last hill and heads towards the finish line. He looks back. He looks back again, almost in disbelief. He's all by himself. No one is close. Mantz crosses the line as the NCAA Division I champion. He's averaged 4-minute and 44-second miles. He's the first American man to win the title since 2008. Conner Mantz will go on to repeat the win the following year. He'll then win the Marathon Olympic trials in 2024. He'll compete in Paris. And then, a few months later, he'll break an almost 20-year half marathon record. But out of these accomplishments, Conner says that windy March race in Oklahoma is one of his proudest moments. When you talk to an athlete of this caliber, it can be a bit of a head-scratcher. I mean, I look at Conner and what he's done with this year, and then I look at myself and what I've done with my year. Conner has set world records and run in the Olympics. As for me, I'm proud I haven't started drinking. What makes someone like Conner so exceptional? What soil grows this type of grit and resilience? When I spoke with Conner, I figured we would talk about all things running, and we did. But I quickly realized that Conner wasn't just giving me a guide to successful athletics, but a guide to a successful life. So whether you're a runner or a walker, whether you're an athlete or a mathlete, whether you're 9 or 90, there is something in this episode for you. Conner is going to give us 8 ideas for winning at life, and 7 and 8 are my favorite. I didn't see them coming from Conner. But as you get to know him, maybe you won't be surprised. Let me introduce you to this record-holding, marathon running Olympian.
I'm Conner Mantz. I am 28 years old. I'm married to my lovely wife, Kylie. Been married for 2 years. From a running standpoint, I'm an Olympian. I was 8th at the Olympics in the marathon. I was running for Team USA. I run professionally, sponsored by Nike, Morton, and Garmin right now.
That's amazing. When was the moment that you decided, hey, I'm going to go for this and I'm going to do running professionally and I'm shooting for the Olympics?
That's a great question. At like age 5, I was like, I want to be the fastest man on earth. That would be really cool. I'm going to go to the Olympics. But, you don't really understand that. You just want to be the fastest kid at recess. I was really inspired by my dad and my older brother. They went and ran a half marathon together when I was 9 years old. And I thought that was really cool. They trained for it together. They finished it. And I was like, I want to do that. And so when I was 12, my dad signed me up for one and let me run it. I thought it was really fun. And I was like, I want to do a marathon now. And my dad's like, wait, hold up. That jump's a lot bigger than you think it is. So instead, I did another half marathon. And then I get into high school and everyone's like, do cross country, do track. And so after that first half marathon, it was always on my mind, like, oh, I want to be competitive at this. I want to be an Olympian. I want to be great at this. But it's not something I understood. In a similar sense, any kid that shoots basketball wants to be like LeBron James, but no kid really understands what it takes to get there. But it's just nice to look up to these well-accomplished athletes or the things that they do. And I think that's what inspires kids. And so for me, it was always on my mind.
So how does a 9-year-old go from wanting to be fast at recess to being a world-class runner? Well, that's the first lesson I learned from Conner. Greatness isn't just about singular huge moments. It's about multiple little things. Why do you think you're an Olympian athlete? Like, what sets you apart?
What sets somebody apart as an Olympian isn't any one thing that you do. It's a lot of consistency over, years and years of maybe 10 things, 20 things that you're doing all throughout your day, throughout your weeks, throughout your months and years. But it's running these long miles and consistently doing the little things like making sure I'm getting 9 hours of sleep every night and making sure I'm eating well and eating enough. And then, running twice a day, lifting twice a week, and making sure I'm resting enough, training really hard but not overdoing it. It's a combination of, thousands of days where little things are contributing. I'd say that's what makes me an Olympian. I really look up to my coach at Stone. He's the coach at Brigham Young University. He's quoted a lot by saying this, but it's consistent competence equals eventual excellence. It's not this idea that you need to go out and do something special or you need to go do something incredible every day, but you just need to be competent. There's a standard you need to meet every day, and that's about all you need to do to eventually be excellent. And so for me, it's not like I should go out and run 100 miles in one day, and that's going to make me great. But if I run, 15 miles today, 20 miles tomorrow, and so on, I'm eventually going to be excellent. I think that's the right way to go about things. You're never going to be a master pianist in one day or Leonardo da Vinci in one day, but it's going to be these little things you do every day that'll eventually lead you to excellence.
Life lesson number 1, and I'm quoting Conner's coach here, consistent competence equals eventual excellence. It's the small things we choose to do every day with regularity that will make a difference in our lives. Maybe it's driving past the fast food joints if we're trying to save money. Maybe it's going for that dinner walk if we're trying to be more healthy. Or maybe it's taking that moment to say a prayer or meditate if we're trying to find more peace or connection to God. Whatever we're trying to be excellent at, it really comes down to small things done consistently. And that's an encouraging thought because we can all do little things, right? Conner's second life lesson is an extension of the first, and that is to listen to your coach and not just their catchy sayings. It's leaning into the advice from people we trust and who know more than we do.
I think the biggest mistakes are just not listening to my coach. I think it's easy to think you know better. You kind of can compare with other athletes and see what these guys are doing this form of workout. So with running, a big thing right now that a lot of people are doing is a double threshold workout where they will do one hard workout in the morning and one hard workout in the afternoon. And it's easy to be like, well, everybody's doing this right now and they're all improving a lot. Maybe I need to be doing that. And then, if I go and try and do it on my own and my coach is like, wait, let's not do that, and then I get hurt, I realize I could have just listened to my coach and I would have been just fine and I would have kept improving. Now I have to sit out for 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Conner realized that listening to his coach would save him pain and frustration in the long run. But Conner has also realized that mentors come in lots of forms, including fellow runners.
I was talking with an athlete named Meb Keflezighi. He was one of America's best marathon runners for a good 13-year period. Phenomenal athlete. Won the Boston Marathon. He won the New York City Marathon. He's won an Olympic medal. And I kind of asked about, longevity. What did he do in his career to help him continue to run for a long time? Because, look, I want to be at this level. I want to be the best athlete I can be. However, I'd rather be a really good athlete for 12 years instead of just being, the best for 1 year and then fading into oblivion. And he said, make sure you're doing your stretches, make sure you're enjoying it, make sure you're doing all these little things. And one of his rules of thumb is, if you are too tired to go work out, it's just not happening, make sure you just take a break, take 2 days off or something. And he was just recommending you do all these little things, but if you're getting too tired to train, just take a step back. You don't need to push through every time. And I think that's really valuable, not just in running, but in a lot of different things.
Life lesson number 2, listen to your mentors. Now, that may be an actual coach, like Ed Eyestone, a fellow runner, but it also might be a medical professional or a teacher or a friend or a family member, anyone who has the wisdom and experience you need. There is so much good advice out there that is ours for the taking if we're willing to admit we might not know as much as we think we do. And I'm not just talking to the 16-year-olds out there. In fact, I think that's why I love doing this podcast so much. It's all about getting people's best advice for a better life. And it's all helpful if I let it be helpful. Seeking it out, like Conner did with Meb, is the first step. Listening is the second. Conner's third life lesson is to be honest about circumstances and choices and what's at play in our lives.
I think every athlete needs to look back at what circumstances affected their performance. And not just athletes. It's easy to be a victim, but it's also just as easy to say, oh, I just didn't work hard enough. When really it's usually a little bit of both. If things aren't working out well for you, it's probably a little bit of I'm not working as hard as I need to, or you're working as hard as you need to. And you got to take into account sometimes the circumstances weren't right for me to be my best.
That's lesson number 3. Sometimes the fates combine against us. It happens. And sometimes we don't step up, and that also happens. The trick is being honest about why things happen. That means not blaming everyone and everything else for our own mistakes. But it also means having grace with ourselves when circumstances aren't ideal. Life lesson number 4 is to anticipate the hard before it happens.
I've worked with a sports psychologist for the last, 5 years or so. So quite a while.
Yeah.
And one of the tools is visualization, how the race will play out or how you're going to feel. Not really worrying about what's going on around you, but how are you feeling? And I go into these races and I have to expect it to be difficult. And I'm okay with that.
You're expecting it.
I'm expecting it. It's not like, oh, when is this race going to get difficult? I just know it's going to get difficult. I know my legs are going to hurt. I know my lungs are going to hurt. I know I'm going to be fatigued. I know I'll probably have a headache really bad partway through. But that's part of the plan. If I'm not going to run that hard, then this might not be the right sport for me. This might not be the right thing for me to do. But expecting that to happen and knowing it's going to happen and then addressing it before it actually happens. That's one of the tools that I've used is just making sure I know what's happening, how I'm going to react before I have that decision in front of me.
Lesson number 4, anticipate the hard. And choose your reaction to the hard now instead of in the moment. It reminds me of all those talks I have with my kids that they just beg for, right? When we talk about drugs and alcohol or pornography or bullying or any other really hard thing they might face. It's all about knowing your reaction beforehand so you aren't blindsided. But I also like how this can apply to adults in how we handle disagreements, in how we handle financial upsets, and even in how we handle death. And for more on that, see our previous episode on estate planning. Just keeping it real, folks. And lesson number 5 is about keeping your focus when those hard things do happen.
You're running a marathon, and I feel like at my level, the first 9 miles are pretty easy. First 13 miles, it's starting to get a little hard, and then you hit about mile 18 and it starts to feel really long. But those first 18 miles kind of go by really quick. And so I'll get really excited in these marathons and like, oh, I can do this, like I'm great. And then I hit mile 18, and every mile after that, I'm just slowing down, and I have to mentally tell myself, let's push through for another 3 minutes, or let's push on for another mile, and focusing on the road ahead of me. If I look down at my watch or just stare down at the ground, I'm going to struggle more. But if I keep my eyes forward, whether there's a competitor in front of me, then I know where I'm going, and what I'm trying to do is chase them down. Then I can push through. But if I can't see anyone, it's just look into the distance, look at whatever I can out there and focus on something, whether it's the next turn, or there's a car, or there's someone cheering, or there's just a sign or a billboard. It's the little things you have to kind of focus on.
Lesson number 5, look up and keep your focus on something ahead of you. When I interviewed Hank Smith about happiness practices, I remember him saying something similar to this. He said that happy people have things they look forward to. For both Conner and Hank, the idea of looking ahead is essential. It keeps you moving in a positive direction. I remember as a young mom and a newly widowed woman, I knew I had to have something on the calendar that I could anticipate, or I would get lost in my week. Somehow, keeping my eyes on something ahead of me allowed me to actually enjoy the present more. It's sort of magic that way. Lesson number 6 is to utilize the power of self-belief. And when I asked Conner about this, he said this is applied to lots more in his life than just running. Has running helped you in other areas of your life?
One thing is just the power of self-belief. There was a study, I think it was like 2015, that was just how when you tell yourself and give positive self-talk to yourself, how it decreases your anxiety, whether it's for an interview or a test or a public speaking thing, versus when you don't. And, anxiety is going to come in any sport, but especially in running, especially at the Olympics. We'll use the Olympics as my scenario.
Let's use the Olympics as your scenario, because I can't think of another anxiety-induced, the world is watching.
Right.
Yeah.
And this study showed that if you just tell yourself a simple phrase of I can do this, then you're going to be able to have less anxiety, drop your heart rate, use less energy, and you're going to be able to conserve more energy for something like a marathon that's super long, where half of your race plan is to conserve energy.
Okay.
And so that's one thing I've applied not just in running, but in a lot of aspects of my life, just telling myself I can do this. And doing that over and over again, just saying, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. Did it a lot in college for tests. I studied engineering. That was really hard. Mm-hmm. Really, at least for me it was. I know some people seem to be naturally born geniuses, but studying engineering was difficult. And I remember going into these tests, and I just had to tell myself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, over and over again. And that was one of the things that helped me have a clear mind.
Lesson 6, harness the power of self-belief. It saves your energy. It reduces anxiety. And the beauty of positive self-talk is it's free. Now, I haven't run a marathon lately, but I do remember running with a friend of mine. We came to this vicious hill towards the end of our run. Between my gasps for breath, I could hear my friend saying something to herself repeatedly as she climbed the hill. And it took me a second to kind of figure out what she was saying, but then I heard it clearly. You got this. You can do this. She said it again and again until the hill was over. She was really affirming herself up the hill, and I love that. Yes, affirmations can help with running, but as Conner showed us, self-belief is a power we can utilize in any situation: tests, public speaking, job interviews, and even just the daily grind. Speaking of running with others, Conner's 7th life lesson is all about people. I'd love to talk a little bit about teamwork and then the idea of running with a team. Do you prefer running by yourself for practices, or with a team?
With the team.
How come?
I think when you're running with a group of people, it helps it go by quicker, and you're not really focused on how your body's feeling. You're very focused on just the conversations you're having, or if you're running.
Oh, that's so interesting that you can talk while you run.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's something that I've really experienced.
Yeah, I would say probably if I ran 120 miles, for 100 of those miles, I'm probably with somebody and we're talking. There's a lot that comes from camaraderie. So I run with Clayton Young. He's another Olympian. also ran with him at BYU. And at the Olympic trials, training for the Olympic trials, we'd probably ran over 10,000 miles together. And if you do the math on that, we'll just say at minimum, we spent 70,000 minutes together. Now, I'm not going to do the math on that of how many days that is, but
wow.
It's a lot of time together. And you get a lot of confidence when you're running with somebody. You get really close and you've got that camaraderie so that when you're in a race and it gets difficult and you're with that same person, like I was with Clayton for the Olympics, for the Olympic trials, for the Chicago Marathon, there's this sense of familiarity.
I've told you all about my playgroup friends in England when I was a lonely young mom who was just trying to survive in a foreign country. These women were my support system, and I couldn't have done it without them. Now, Conner says that many people provide him with a wealth of support and inspiration, even people from different cultures and backgrounds. He learned this lesson while serving a mission for the LDS Church in Ghana, Africa.
It was really, really neat serving in Ghana because the people are so loving, they're so generous, they're so caring, they're so hardworking. And I think that was really inspiring to me, is that you would see people who didn't have a lot and they'd be out working really hard and they'd be so generous with their time, with their food. They are looking for any way they can to help, anyone out.
Wow.
And they just keep their eyes open. And I think that's a really cool culture that I wish, I wish I could display that as much as I felt loved there. And in running, as a professional, things can be a little bit singular and a little bit myopic. But when you have a team and those you train with, you can go out and really support them and try and be caring and charitable to them in whatever way you need to be.
Now, at the beginning of the episode, I told you that the last two ideas were my favorite, and here's why. When I was talking with Conner about the Paris Olympics, like you do, he did something I didn't expect. I thought he'd talk all about his race and how he felt and how he was proud of such an incredible achievement. I really set up the interview for that moment. But instead, Conner talked about other people. I'm wondering, as we're kind of wrapping this up, what it was just like being at the Olympics. This is an experience that most people don't get.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of people are really curious about, what does that feel like? What's running through your head when you go there and experience all of that? What was that like for you?
It was a really special thing. I got a room with one of my really good friends, Kenneth Rooks, who ended up actually claiming the silver medal in the men's steeplechase. And that was one of the best moments of the games for me.
Watching your friend win?
Watching my friend win the silver medal. So
wow.
That was really, really special. But yeah, meeting athletes from all over the world, talking to people. I talked to people from some countries in Europe I can't even pronounce. I talked to people from Togo. I talked to people from Ghana. I talked to people from Kenya. I talked to people from China. And it was just really cool meeting people from all over the world. And you notice that you have a lot more similarities than differences with these people, and I thought that was pretty special.
It's still hard for me to wrap my head around Conner's response. Not a word about his own race. Not one. For him, the best part of the Olympics were the people Conner got to meet and celebrate. He talked about them. And when we talk about other people helping us win at life, I now realize that Conner's love of people isn't just about what people can do for you. It's also just about celebrating the excellence around us. So life lesson number 7, utilize, enjoy, and celebrate the people around you. Today's final life lesson from Conner is another one of my favorites. And it's not the one I really expected coming from an elite athlete. But lesson number 8 is to be grateful. You credit gratitude as part of your success. And so I'm curious as to what that looks like for you, how you practice it, or how you incorporate it into your daily life.
I think one way I incorporate it in my daily life is I wake up every morning and say a prayer of gratitude, and before I go to bed every night, give another prayer of gratitude, and I try and pray often throughout the day as well. Another way is I think about it a lot. I think about how people have gotten me to the place that I'm at. When I was running the Olympic trials marathon, I was talking with someone before the race, and they were talking about how, race with gratitude. And we had talked about writing down, 26 names and doing a mile for every name. And just in the race when it got hard, just thinking of that one person. And there were some miles in the race where things were getting difficult, where I was thinking, okay, this one is for my dad. This one is for my mom. This one is for my older brother. And this one's for my sister. And I was kind of, there's some miles I went down the list, and then I was telling myself, okay, like this last one's going to be for my wife, for all that she's done. And when things got really difficult in that race, it was easy to say, okay, I'm just going to run this mile for whoever. And it helped the race feel shorter because I had broken it up into these mile segments. And so it was like, let's just work for 5 minutes and just think about dad or think about my mom.
Life lesson number 8. Be grateful. And I hate to brag here, but I'm going to show a lot more gratitude than Conner if I'm the one running, since it's going to take me 3 times as long to run those miles. But gratitude in any form or length is a beautiful way to live life. I love that Conner's expertise at running translates so beautifully into 8 life lessons for all of us. Do the little things, because consistent competence leads to eventual excellence. Listen to the people that matter and pay attention to their advice. Be honest about circumstances and your own choices. Visualize and anticipate the hard. Focus on something ahead of you. Harness the power of self-belief. Utilize others for support and inspiration. And finally, be grateful. Since interviewing Conner, he's run the Boston Marathon. After crossing the line with a personal best of 2 hours and 5 minutes, Conner was all smiles for the reporters. Was it because he was the first American across the line? Maybe. But more likely, it was because Conner knows more than how to win races. He knows how to win at life.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, hosted by Lisa Valentine Clark. This episode was produced by Erica Price with help from Becca Hurley, Blake Morse, and Kenny Mears, with post-production by Gracie Davis. A special thanks to our guest, Conner Mantz. You can follow Conner on Instagram at Conner Mantz. Be sure to check out the Council of Moms, available on YouTube or wherever you listen. As always, thanks for your messages. We read them all. And thanks for listening.
Do you find yourself avoiding the news because of how depressive it all feels, but you still want to stay informed on important issues? Then you have got to listen to Top of Mind. It's a BYU Radio original podcast just for you. It's hosted by award-winning journalist Julie Rose, and every episode leaves you feeling empowered and hopeful and very informed. There you learn to engage with tough topics and develop this empathy for other perspectives while clarifying your own views. If you want to become a better citizen, a kinder neighbor, and a more effective advocate for the things that you care about, listen to Top of Mind. It really challenges your way of thinking in a way that is intellectually engaging and accessible. Listen to Top of Mind on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.